Asian Games in Jakarta. Going live, Samsung's stock split happens today. Analysts say it will increase accessibility of the company's shares to retail investors, but could also introduce additional volatility. We are crossing live to the Korea Exchange. Plus, more than 120 people are killed in India as an intense dust storm blazes through homes and rips up trees in the north of the country. So let's start with the latest sports diplomacy between the two Koreas. Last time, it was a unified women's ice hockey team at the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. This time, the South and North are coming together to form a formidable team at the table tennis table. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
At the 2018 World Team Table Tennis Championships taking place in Halmstad, Sweden, South and North Korea turned what would have been a quarterfinals matchup against each other into a unified team that's heading to the semifinals together. The decision to form a joint Korean team was a three-way agreement between the leaders of the South and North Korean table tennis teams and the International Table Tennis Federation. And the players from both sides are delighted to be a part of the unified team.
I thought the joint team was only a part of history. It's a great honor to be part of a new unified team which will make history as well.
I wondered if we could form a joint team and whether I could join, but I feel really proud now it has become reality. I want to do well and I feel really good. I've made up my mind to keep up the good work.
The joint squad will be called Korea and will face off against Japan on Friday. Japanese player Mima Ito was quoted as saying that a unified Korea would not necessarily pose a greater challenge to them in the last four, and they will just play their own game. The joint table tennis team will be the first since the 1991 World Table Tennis Championships in Japan, when the unified women's team led by South Korean Olympic champion Hyun Jung-hwa and North Korean star Lee Boon-hee won the gold medal. Meanwhile, the Seoul-based Korean Table Tennis Association has also proposed a unified Korean team at this year's Asian Games in Jakarta, which is pending approval from the International Table Tennis Federation. The KTTA said it would like to see both Koreas retain their allotted roster spots, 2 players for each the men's and women's singles, 2 teams each in the mixed doubles, and 5 players in the team event, even if they combine their teams. Talks for joint Korean teams at the Asian Games gained momentum last week following the Inter-Korean Summit. During the summit, the leaders agreed to demonstrate their collective wisdom, talents, and solidarity by jointly participating in international sports events such as the 2018 Asian Games. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's Presidential Committee on the Implementation of the Panmunjom Declaration held its inaugural meeting on Thursday. Among other things, the members discussed holding their first high-level inter-Korean talks by the middle of this month. Our Moon Jaein reports.
The first meeting of the Presidential Committee on the Implementation of the historic April 27th Panmunjom Declaration. The new committee is based on an earlier interagency organization established to help prepare for the symbolic summit between the leaders of South and North Korea held last week at the border truce village of Panmunjom.
We will negotiate with North Korea and hold high-level inter-Korean dialogue by mid-May. As for issues that need further negotiations, the committee will take the outcome of the high-level talks and continue discussion at working-level talks.
Headed by President Moon's Chief of Staff Kim Jong-un, the committee will focus on carrying out the outcome of the leaders' meeting, which calls for various measures aimed at denuclearization of North Korea and formally ending the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. The first task force to be launched in the committee, which will also see new members from the government, will be one to check the possibility of cross-border cooperation in forestry.
Cooperation in forestry is one of those areas the North most urgently requires help with, and also an area we have much expertise in, so we plan to tackle that area first.
President Moon earlier in the week urged swift implementation of steps that can be taken right away, acknowledging those that may have to be delayed due to international sanctions placed on the North Korean regime.
As the president always says, this is only the beginning, with the North Korea-US summit just around the corner. I think we may be able to stretch our legs and move on to the next phase only once we round off the North-US summit without our guard down.
Moon Jaein, Arirang News, The Blue House.
And South Korea's defense ministry has organized a task force to execute the Panmunjom Declaration signed at last week's Inter-Korean summit. A South Korean military official told Arirang News on Friday that the task force is led by Defense Minister Song Yong-moo and is made up of key defense ministry officials and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as well as defense experts. The team is also preparing inter-Korean military talks, including the general-level talks slated for later this month. As part of its execution of the Panmunjom Declaration, the team is aiming to complete the removal of the loudspeakers along the inter-Korean border by the end of this weekend. President Moon Jaein invited 4 key political and government leaders for a luncheon at the top office on Thursday to brief them on the results of the historic Inter-Korean summit and also to fill them in on his upcoming diplomatic schedule. Hwang Ho-jun with the details.
It was the first meeting of its kind since the historic summit between South Korean President Moon Jaein and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and the third one since President Moon took office almost a year ago. The liberal leader pointed out that things have changed since then. President Moon had initially invited the so-called 5 next in command to the Thursday's luncheon at the Blue House. Those 5 are Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun, National Assembly Speaker Chung Se-kyun, Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court Lee Jin-sung, Head of the National Election Commission Kwon Soon-il, and Supreme Court Chief Justice Kim Myung-soo. But Chief Justice Kim Myung-soo is visiting Spain, Argentina, and Chile, so he was unable to attend. During the 90-minute session, the officials were briefed by a top national security official on the results of the summit and actions to follow up on the Panmunjom Declaration. According to the Blue House, National Assembly Speaker Chung noted that because both the South Korean and U.S. presidents will have several years left in office, there's a much greater chance the Panmunjom Declaration will actually be implemented. The Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court said he felt genuineness on the part of North Korea as he watched the summit broadcast last Friday. South Korea's Prime Minister praised the live streaming process, saying it amplified the message of peace to the world. And the National Election Commission chief said building trust is a two-way street and that the two Koreas need to work together to gain each other's trust. The menu for the lunch was the same as last Friday's dinner in Panmunjom, so Seoul's Big Four could taste the dishes served at the summit. President Moon insisted that North Korea is taking part in the summits with sincerity and accepting reality unlike before. He pointed out that North Korea is taking a leap of faith and said that Seoul must seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Now, China's foreign minister met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang on Thursday. Wang Yi and Kim reportedly talked about the rapid pace of diplomacy here on the Korean Peninsula and reaffirmed their bilateral relations ahead of the big summit between North Korea and the United States. Oh Jung-hee reports.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang on Thursday, according to Beijing's foreign ministry. Wang arrived in Pyongyang on Wednesday for a 2-day trip following a historic inter-Korean summit last week and prior to an unprecedented North Korea-US summit to take place either later this month or early June. What's been shared between Kim and China's top diplomat is not known, but it's expected the two could have discussed last week's inter-Korean summit as well as China's role in North Korea's move towards denuclearization in the process of putting a formal end to the Korean War with a permanent peace treaty. This is the first visit to Pyongyang by a Chinese foreign minister in 11 years. Views are that China's trying to solidify its position in negotiations regarding the Korean Peninsula, as last Friday's Panmunjom Declaration left open the possibility of China's exclusion from future talks. The agreement between Seoul and Pyongyang stipulated that ensuring peace on the Korean Peninsula could be discussed either trilaterally with the U.S. or through four-way talks with the U.S. and China. Wang stressed China's role when meeting with his North Korean counterpart Yong-ho on Wednesday. He stressed China will continue to play a, quote, positive role in seeking solutions to the Korean Peninsula issue. He also expressed support for North Korea's efforts towards denuclearization. Wang welcomed the success of last Friday's Inter-Korean summit and said Beijing backs the improvement in inter-Korean relations as well as North Korea settling its security concerns. China's state media reported that there are no concerns over a so-called bypassing China, as reported recently by international outlets, and that China has an indispensable role in achieving denuclearization and peace on the Korean Peninsula. 오정희, Arirang News.
South Korea has assured China that it can take part in possible three- or four-way talks on replacing the Korean War armistice agreement with a peace treaty. However, Unification Minister Jo Myung-gyun added that Seoul's stance does not indicate Beijing must come under those talks, refuting early reports that said China would have to be a principal of the talks. The armistice formalizing a ceasefire between the two Koreas was signed in 1953 by three parties: the UN Command, North Korea and China. On the issue of denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula, Minister Jo said North Korean leader Kim Jong-un mentioned the details on the regime's denuclearization will be discussed during his summit with the US President Donald Trump. He added that the South Korean government will work hard to ensure the upcoming summit is a success. Now to the latest on the three Americans held by North Korea amid speculation they are due to be released. Adding to those expectations, President Trump's lawyer and former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani told Fox News on Thursday that Pyongyang is releasing the three detainees today. The comment follows President Trump's tweet on the issue and reports the American detainees have been relocated from a labor camp to a hotel near Pyongyang. And here's the White House spokesperson reacting to that comment.
As Mayor Giuliani stated, and I'll refer you back to his comments, this was information that the president didn't know at the time, but eventually learned. We give the very best information that we have at the time.
Sanders added that the White House can't confirm the validity of any of the reports currently out about the release, but said the US would see it as a sign of goodwill if the American detainees were set free. The Trump administration has long been demanding the North release the prisoners Kim Dong-chul, Tony Kim and Kim Hak-song. Now, following 3 days of no trading, Samsung Electronics has returned to South Korea's main bourse, the benchmark Cosby. This after the tech giant's decision back in January to do a stock split. The company's shares are actually down around 0.75% in early trading. They stand at around 52,600 won. That's about $49 US. We're going to pass it over to our Cha Sang-mi. She's with us at the Korea Exchange, where all the action happens. The market opened there about half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago. Sang-mi, so it's a huge day on the local financial market.
Indeed, Mark, it is. It's day one of Samsung Electronics being back on the market after the company decided to split its stock to 50-1. And now we're just about 1 hour into the trading, but there is a huge attention on the benchmark Cosby as the split is happening today. And analysts and investors are very curious and even nervous about what is going to happen with the split happening. The massive change comes after Korea's tech giant announced a 50-1 stock split in January, saying the decision would make investing in the company more accessible and provide dividends to a wider range of investors. Analysts say the stock split doesn't change the valuation of the shares, but it will draw more individual investors because psychologically the stock looks cheaper. Yet there are different viewpoints on the impact that comes with it. Some analysts say Samsung's move will drive the stock price to re-rate the Korean stock market, given the fact that local investors will be much easier to access Samsung shares, which take up over 30% of Korea's stock exchange.
One share is almost 2,500 per share, which is an income, monthly income for a retail investor. So it's very difficult to approach the stock. So stock split will make a lot of local investors to be more in tune to invest into Samsung.
Yet some economists say while it's almost no-brainer that for the next few days Samsung stock prices will shoot up, the impact is rather worrisome for the nation's stock market in the long run.
As the Samsung prices goes up and take a bigger share of the Korean stock market, that means the 30 to 40% of Korean stock market will be controlled by just one firm. So whenever Samsung has a bad turn, it'll make the entire Korean stock market unattractive.
The economist warned Samsung Electronics' strategy could possibly distort the market and allow one firm to wield too much influence over the entire market. Mark, the market opened just about an hour ago, and now the mood seems a little bit upbeat, for now at least. I will be back with the latest updates after the market closes. Back to you, Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Sang-mi, for that report. No financial advice, but maybe better just to see how it unfolds today with this stock split happening. Like I say, the stock price is down around 0.75% so far today. So we're going to move on to some more economic financial news because South Korea's foreign exchange reserves hit a record high for the second month in a row in April. The total value of the country's foreign exchange reserves was more than $398.4 billion US. That's up more than $1.6 billion from a month earlier. The gains came despite an appreciation of the Korean won. The Bank of Korea said the on-month rise was boosted by increased gains from investment and in foreign assets. According to the central bank, as of the end of March, South Korea has the world's 9th largest FX reserves, with China topping the list. 4 South Korean tourists were killed in a traffic accident on Thursday in Turkey's Antalya province. 4 other South Korean tourists and a Turkish national were injured after the minibus they were travelling in crashed into a car while crossing in the Kaima district. According to local reports, 2 of the injured Koreans are in critical condition and are being treated at a nearby hospital. A Joseon Dynasty era relic is set to return to Korea in the coming weeks. A copper stamp that belonged to Princess Dok-on, the last princess of the Joseon Dynasty, will return later this month after a private seller put it up for auction in New York. You're looking at it there. Korea's Cultural Heritage Administration and the Overseas Korean Cultural Heritage Foundation, which bought the stamp, said its return will bring the number of such stamps held by Korea to 3. Now, this princess in question was the daughter of Sunjo, who was the 23rd king of the Joseon Dynasty. So now it's time to take a look at the stories making headlines around the world, and we start in India. Powerful dust storms have wreaked havoc across that country, leaving at least 125 people dead and more than 200 others injured. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Noah Aram. So, Aram, we've been watching the video this morning, really terrifying scenes out of India. What's the latest?
Well, Mark, the fierce dust storm started on Wednesday, hitting the northern Indian states of Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan and Punjab. They were accompanied by severe winds and rapid-fire lightning strikes which have left a trail of destruction. Disaster officials in the southern state of Andhra Pradesh said the region was hammered by more than 41,000 lightning strikes on Wednesday. The extent of the damage, however, was most noticeable the day after, with houses flattened, power lines brought down and trees uprooted. Livestock in the hardest hit areas were almost completely wiped out, and schools and businesses were also closed. Many of the deaths happened while people were sleeping, being crushed by toppling roofs and collapsing walls. Rescuers are still scouring the rubble to search for any survivors. However, the worst is far from over, as residents are bracing for another storm, which weather authorities warn could come in the next few days over a wider area. Similar storms claim many lives each year in India, but officials say this one was the most severe in recent decades, mostly due to the falling debris. Prime Minister Narendra Modi issued a statement Thursday expressing his condolences and urged state governments to provide assistance to those who need it. US President Donald Trump has changed his story about a $130,000 hush money payment made to porn star Stormy Daniels, with whom he's accused of having an affair. In a series of Thursday morning tweets, Trump said his lawyer, Michael Cohen, who paid Daniels the hush money, was reimbursed for the payment during the 2016 presidential election. But Trump said the money did not come from campaign funds, which would be illegal. The tweets came after Trump's new lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, told Fox News that Trump reimbursed Cohen with his own private funds. Trump also remained adamant there was no affair with Daniels and said the non-disclosure agreement was to stop the, quote, false and extortionist accusations made by her. His comments contradict his previous remarks in which he said he had no knowledge of the payment to Daniels. TV star Bill Cosby and Oscar-winning director Roman Polanski have been expelled from the US Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. In a statement released on Thursday, the group behind the Academy Awards said its decision was in accordance with the organization's standards of conduct. Cosby was found guilty of sex crimes last week, while Polanski admitted to having unlawful sex with a 13-year-old girl in 1977.
The Goyang International Flower Festival is well underway, welcoming visitors from Korea and around the world. Let's get a glimpse of the festival by going over to our Lee Ji-hyun, who's usually cooped up in the weather center here, but today she's at the flower festival for us. Ji-hyun, you must be extremely happy to be there, but I hear there is plenty to see over there at the festival.
Good morning, Mark. Yes, definitely. Well, the festival kicked off about a week ago, and as we can see, the spring flowers are in full bloom. And along with the flower exhibition, there is K-pop dance performances and magic shows to entertain visitors. Now, the festival will run through May 13th, and of course, there are great photo zones here and there for you to capture memories of the day with your friends and family. So thousands of flowers from 36 different countries have gathered here, creating a wonderful view along the bank of Ilsan Lake Park in Goyang City. Strolling under the clear blue skies and taking in the refreshing spring breeze, visitors can enjoy the atmosphere of the Goyang International Flower Festival, one of Korea's biggest flower fairs. Thankfully, the weather looks promising for the three-day weekend, except on Sunday with nationwide rain in the forecast. And yesterday's fickle weather condition has stabilized, and we are expecting bright and warm afternoon highs, unlike a chilly and breezy start to the day. And as for the daily highs, Seoul will get up to 19 degrees Celsius, which is about 5 degrees higher than yesterday. Daegu and Gyeongju will make it to 23 degrees. Now, as you can see, it's bright already, so be sure to apply a good amount of sunblock to protect yourself from strong sunshine and try to enjoy the most of today's weather conditions because we are expecting picture-perfect spring weather today. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's where we're going to leave the news for now. Our next bulletin is coming up at noon Korea time. We have a jam-packed newscast for you then. So until noon, goodbye.